So this is lesson 3.6. Congruent triangles. So when we talk about congruent triangles, we're talking about two triangles that have the same shape and the same size. The same shape and the same size. If the triangles are congruent, that means that all corresponding parts, so all angles and all sides, are going to match up and be congruent. Okay, so we have two triangles that are the same. So if I look down in the next example that says congruency statements, a congruency statement is just saying that the two triangles are congruent to each other. And if we look over here at this example, one of the things to notice is that A matches up with D. And then if we look at our congruency statement, A is the first letter, matching up with D, which is the first letter. That should always happen. Same thing if I said angle C is 3 arcs, and that matches with angle F, 3 arcs. So C is the last one, and F is the last one. They should always be in the same position. So then if we look at our sides, okay, if we look at the sides that are matched up, we see that AB with 1 hash mark matches up with ED, which is 1 hash mark. So again, if we look at our congruency statement, AB is the first two, matches up with DE, which is also the first two. Again, that should happen every time we're talking about congruent statements. So sometimes you don't even need to look at the diagram. Okay, so let's do an example. We have what's called CPCTC, and CPCTC is fancy for saying corresponding parts of congruent triangles, and I'm just going to put the symbol there, are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. This again is CPCTC, and all that means that if we know that two triangles are congruent, then everything else matches up. So we will use CPCTC when we begin doing our proofs in the next lesson, but for now let's look at example 1. Says that list all the congruent sides and angles given the congruency statement. So we don't even have a picture here. We're just going to look at our statements. We see that J and P are the first two letters. So that means the angle J is congruent to angle P. Then if I look at the next letter, that's K, matches up with Q. So angle K is congruent to angle Q. Then we have angle L, matches up with angle R. And again, that should always be the case, is that whatever's first goes with first, second one goes with the second one, and the last one goes with the last one. So now if we look at our sides, we can take just the first two. So JK is congruent to PQ. JK is congruent to PQ. Okay, then we'll look at KL, that's the second two. KL matches with QR. So KL is congruent to QR. Then we do, it's always the first and the last. The first and the last. So JL matches with PR. If you'd like to try number 2, go ahead and, well, before we go there, actually, this says write another valid congruency statement. So another way that we could write the statement, if I said triangle KJL is congruent to triangle what? So if I said KJL, what's the order that you would write in? So if we say triangle KJL, you should say triangle QPR. Okay, if you'd like to try example number 2, you can go ahead and pause this video and try it. And then I'll have the answers for you when you get finished. Okay, these are the missing sides, so you can go ahead and pause and check your answers. Pause the video and check your answers. And if I said triangle YWX, what would you say? Triangle YWX. You would say triangle GEF. Okay, let's look at example 3. Example 3 says, given triangle KPM is congruent to triangle AYC, complete each of the following statements. So before I complete the statements, I'm going to go ahead and mark up my diagram. Let's start with our angles first. We know that K goes with A. We know that P goes with Y. Again, I'm just following from my diagram. M is going to go with C. And if we look at our sides, you can say KP matches with AY, PM matches with YC, and then KM matches with AC. Okay, so if we know that information, let's go ahead and fill in A through H. So we said KM goes with AC. We know CY goes with PM. If you say MP, it's the same thing. PK goes with AY. And if we're going to talk about our angles, we know that angle Y is 2 arcs, and that matches up with angle P, that's also 2 marks. Angle K is 1 arc, and that matches with angle A, it's 1 arc. And then it says angle ACY. So when it's asking for the angle ACY, it's asking you to write things in order. So you're going from A to C to Y. So when we go from A to C to Y, that means I'm going from 1 arc to 3 arcs to 2. So in the other diagram, to go 1 arc to 3 arcs to 2 would be angle KMP. Okay. Now if we say triangle MPK is congruent to what? And again, I would look at just the triangle statement. If it says MPK, it's going from here and going backwards. MPK, so that means it's going to go to CYA. So triangle CYA. And then triangle YAC. Okay, so if we look at YAC, they started in the middle, went to the A, and then back to the C. So YAC, so it would PKM. Triangle PKM. Okay, now if you will go to the next video that says 3.5 Part 2, and there's also a Part 3, so make sure that you watch all 3 parts of Lesson 3.5.